Good day, students. I hope you are all doing well. Today, what we are going to discuss is how to add and subtract decimal fractions. When we talk about the decimal fractions, let me throw back to our previous lesson that we learned. The decimal fractions, they are the numbers with a point. And we said decimal fractions, it has three parts. The first part of a decimal fraction is the whole numbers. Whole numbers or whole number. The whole number comes before the point. So numbers the point in from whole numbers. The point, we call it decimal points. And then the last part of a decimal fraction is the decimal numbers. The decimal numbers are those numbers that comes after the point. To share decimal numbers now, the point nechi. So all those numbers that comes after the point, if you point na numbers DH from decimal numbers. We can't say saying from decimal fractions. So today our main objective is to how to add those decimal fractions or how to subtract or find the difference between the decimal fractions or find the sum of. Okay, good. And our topics today is additions and subtraction of decimal fractions, and we have grouped our method that we are going to use to solve these situation into two parts. There are two ways to add or subtract decimal fractions. The first one is the vertical method. When you talk about a vertical method, which means that you arrange the numbers in vertically, meaning from the top to down. But you can't just arrange number just like that. You align the decimal points and solve that. And that one is the traditional method. When you align something means in directly opposite. So you make sure that the point will be in a line. So point being in a line, it's Obama point in so then you start writing your your numbers. And the second method here that we are going to look after is changing both decimal fractions to like fractions. Changing both decimal fractions into like fractions. Changing decimal fractions to like fractions, not any other type of fraction, but like fraction. And when you talk about like fractions, we are referring to the fraction with the same denominators. So all those fractions with the same denominators are called like fraction. So which means that before you change decimal fractions to like fractions, you make sure you balance the decimal numbers, because based on the decimal numbers, that will determine the number of zeros that can move the point outright, and this results into the denominator status. So when you are having decimal numbers, in order to compare, we always balance the decimal numbers. When you do so, it will help you to get equal denominators. And that is the only thing that will help you to get the same denominators, and that will result to the like fractions. Good. Now, our first method that we are going to look after here, remember I say is a vertical form or the vertical method. nneɛma a ɛwɔ mu ara ne sɛ vertical form no, you arrange them in what? In a vertical order. So here, arranging something in vertical order, so three soro form. Align the decimal point and solve. That is the traditional method. You align the decimal point, you make sure that the decimal point in a best answer. Or you use this kind of method as solve decimal fraction. First, because a number with a point in a number now also in our point in, and every whole number is 0.0. So if you want to write 1, the decimal fraction here 1.0. 1.0 is the same as 1. Any number that is 0.0 is the same as that number. So make note of that. So let's see the precedent that we need to follow before we can add a decimal fraction by using align decimal point and solve, or using the vertical form. Firstly, balance both decimal numbers and then indicate the place value digit of the decimal fraction. So remember we said in order to get the same decimal numbers, you need to balance them. Okay, so you count the one having more decimal numbers is the one that you are going to use. So the one having the less decimal numbers, you make sure that you put zeros at the back of the decimal numbers so that it will equate with the other ones and you will get the same decimal number. That is the balance. Balance means equal. You make sure that they all have equal number of decimal numbers. So here, firstly, balance both decimal numbers and then indicate the place value digits of the decimal fraction. Second, arrange the decimal fractions in vertical way by making sure that their decimal points are in a line, that is directly opposite. So after balancing the decimal numbers from both sides, you make sure that the two things that you are going to add or subtract, they have the same decimal numbers. Having the same decimal numbers means when you count the decimal number from the left side, it should be equal to the one on the right side. So if one having less decimal numbers, which preventing them to be equal, then you put a 0 to the one having the less decimal numbers so that they will all balance. Second, after balancing them, you arrange them in a vertical form. No actually but the most important is that you make sure that the point in the point in that is, the point must be in line. So it must be in a line here means you directly opposite, or you position the point in such a way that it will be in the opposite way. Okay, good. Then finally you add or subtract each column. So after arranging them in a vertical form, you indicate the place value digit at the top. And remember we said the decimal numbers, they start their own from the left side, and the place value of the decimal numbers start with what? Tens, while from the zeros, from the tens before you move on to the 100, but the place value for the whole numbers of the decimal numbers also start with the ones, starting from the right side of the whole numbers, but in the decimal numbers starting from the left side of the decimal numbers, and therefore you start indicate that. And the catch then say you have to add the normal addition that you know. You add if there's a remainder, you carry it to the next number, or you subtract if the number is not sufficient, then you take one from the nearby numbers, or you borrow from the immediate number. Okay, that is the normal traditional addition and subtraction that you use. Example. So what we just discussed, we are going to practice them now and see how it works. Now, first one, let me write my solution first. Write my solution. Good. Let me put it here. Now A. Going to solve the A, which is 0.5 plus 0.234. So in order to solve this one, remember we said you need to balance the decimal numbers here, and then the decimal numbers here, we have only one decimal number at the first one, and then we have three decimal numbers here, which means that the first one you put more zeros to replace or to add it to the old one so that it will balance with the new one. Okay, so we have the 0.500, okay, plus 0.234. So when you finish balancing them, you could see that they all have the same decimal numbers. Now you add in the vertical form, okay? So you first put your 0.500, and then you bring your addition sign here. The point must be in line, so here will be the point here, which will start with the 2, 3, and here will be 4, and then the 0 will be here. So you could see that my point now, then you start indicating the position of the numbers. You know, decimal numbers start with the what? With the tens, 100, and then 1,000. Okay.
The time is 1:45 a.m.
And the whole number always start with the ones, okay, from the right side, but the decimal number start with the tens from the left side. Then you underline them. So when you finish on the line, then you add the normal addition, the 4 plus the top here, which is the 0, you get your 4 here. Then 3 plus this will give you 3, and then this plus this will give you 7. Then the point will come, and the 0 plus 0 will give you 0. Now you have done. Okay. Then when you come to the question 2, you could see clearly that here we have 2 decimal numbers here, and here we have 3 decimal numbers here. So let me write the question 2 here. This is the question 1. Question 2. That is 12.38 plus 4.786. Okay, now you have to balance them. Okay, balancing them here means here it has only 2 decimal numbers and here it has only 3 decimal numbers. So the first one need 10 before it will be balanced. So therefore our number here will be 12.380 plus 4.786. Now you could see clearly that when you finish balancing, it will be obvious to you here. Now we have 3 decimal numbers. We have 3 decimal numbers here. Let me come. We have 3 decimal numbers here. Okay. Then you are going to add them. So you first write your 12.380 4 0.786. Okay. Yeah. Now I'm observing the protocol here. You see that the points are always in a line here. Once I tell me I saw my point in a sense. Once I my point in a sense. So when you first indicate the position here, you start with the tens, 100, and then 1,000. Okay, that is the decimal numbers. Always the decimal numbers start with the tens from the left side, but the whole numbers start with the ones from the right side before you move on to the tens of the whole numbers. Okay, so that is the place where the gates here. So you add them, you add the thousands of the decimal before hundreds of the decimal and the tens of the decimal. So the remainder will be carried on to the next immediate number. So let me add. Now when you have this one, the 0 plus 6 here, you get 6. Okay, and then 8 plus 8, that will give you 16. So the 16, you write 6 here. Then you add the 1 to the immediate number here. Okay, you add the 1 to this one. Okay, that is the remainder, so you have to add it to the immediate number. Now 1 plus 4, 1 plus 3 here will be 4 right there, and then 4 plus 7, that will be 11. Then you put 1 here. Then you add the next one to the immediate number here. You add it to this one plus 1. Okay, now here is then the point must come, because once you have arranged them in vertical form, the point must always be in line. I saw a point here, the essence. Then when you add the 1 to this 2, you get 3. 3 plus 4, that will be 7. Okay, and then here there's nothing here, so it's left with only the 1 here. Then this 1 will be also here. So our final answer here is 17.166. Remember, decimal numbers are read one after the other. It's not 17.166, but rather 17.166. Good. Now you're moving on to the C. The C, we have let me do that one at the top here. The C, we have 0.5 minus 0.23. This is under subtraction, the same method, in a subtraction form, but the procedure and say addition and now subtraction. The only thing is that you first balance the decimal numbers. Okay, so let's quickly balance the decimal numbers here. The decimal numbers, the first one here is 1 and here is 2. So which means that the first one need 1 0 before it will be equate to the second decimal number, because you need to add the 0 to the decimal number so that it will be the same as the second one. So let's see how to balance our decimal numbers here. So our second one, so which means that our new decimal fractions will be the 0.5050 minus 0.23. So you have done with the balancing. Okay, you are done with the balancing. So which means that now it has two decimal numbers and here two decimal numbers. Now we can proceed our subtraction. So you start with it, because here when you are even comparing, you could see that the 0.50 is bigger than the 0.23, because remember our previous lesson. So you can subtract that. Okay, so always the biggest one first, and it's already arranged here. So 0.5, when you compare the whole numbers and the whole number, here is 0 and then when you come to the decimal number, the first digit is 5. Here the first digit of the decimal numbers of the other side is 2, so which means that the 5 is bigger than so you can subtract. Okay, now we are going to arrange them in a vertical form. Make sure that the point will be in line. So our 0.50 first, then followed by 0.23. Now you put your minus sign to indicate the kind of operation sign that you are using. That is the minus sign. Then you underline. When you finish underline, you indicate the position or the place value digit. Remember we said the decimal numbers, the place value digit start from where tens, starting from the left side. So 10 before the 100 here. Okay, but the whole numbers always start from the ones on the right side of the whole number. Okay, good. Now we are going to subtract. Because we always subtract the down numbers from the top one. When you subtract the 3 from the 0, it can be possible. There's nothing here to subtract the 3 from. Then you need to go to the immediate number here. Then you take 1 from then. So here will be the normal one. So here will be 10. And here remains 4. Okay. Here remains 4. So when you subtract the 3 from 10, you get 7. Okay. Now here is 4. It's no more 5 because you have already taken 1 from it. So now you subtract the 2 from the 4 and here remains 2 here. Okay. Then make sure that the point will be in line. That is why you are using the vertical form. Then you subtract the 0 from 0, you get 0. Okay, good. So now our answer here is 0.27. 0.27. Okay, good. Now let's solve the other one here. Now the D, which is 24, because it's a whole number, so you need to mention them together. So that is the 24.2 minus 17.452. 17.452. So as usual, you first balance the decimal numbers. And remember, we said decimal numbers are the number that comes after the point. So here, our decimal number here is the only one decimal number here. And here we have 3 decimal numbers, which means that we'll be putting 2 zeros at the back of this decimal number so that it will be equal to the what? To the 3 decimal numbers of the other side. So let's write our new balancing. So which will be 24.2 and then 2 zeros so that it will balance with the other one minus the 17.452. Now we have a balance or equal decimal numbers here. Okay, now let's check. Here is 3 decimal numbers now, and here is 3 decimal numbers now. So we are going to arrange them in what? In a vertical form. In a vertical form, is just all the first rubber form holding one. So you start writing. So we have your 24.200, then 17.452. Okay, now you have to indicate the operation sign that you are using. Sign so the operation sign that you are using here, and that one is the minus sign. Okay, so you bring your minus sign here, you underline it nicely. Okay, now we are going to subtract. Remember, we said you always subtract the down numbers from the top ones. So let's do that one here. But before then, you have to indicate.
The time is 2 o'clock a.m.
Before then, you have to indicate the position of the numbers. Okay, so you leave one line at the top here, because when you borrow, you need to write the remaining so that you will not forget about that one. Okay, so here start with the tens, 100, and then 1,000. Okay, because always the decimal numbers start with what? With the tens from the left side, while the whole numbers start with the ones, starting from where? From the right side. So from the ones, then you move on to the tens of the whole numbers. But we don't have ones in the decimal numbers. Okay, good. Now, when you finish, then that we are going to do our subtraction. So let's compute here. We always subtract the down numbers from the top here. So when you subtract the 2 from the 0, it can be possible. Okay, you can't subtract the bigger number from the what? From the smaller number. You need to borrow or take something from the immediate number. So You can't subtract the 2 from the 0, so you need to take 1 from the immediate number. Immediate number, no, we need a. So then you move on to the next number. So here will remain 1, here will be 9 here, and therefore here will be 10. Okay, because when you come here to be 10, then you take 10, take 1 from the 10, so that is why here remain 9, and here will be what? 10. So when you now it's possible that you can subtract the 2 from 10 here. So the 2 from 10, you get 8 here. Okay, now here is 9. 5 from 9, you get 4. Now here is what? It's 1. You can't subtract 4 from 1. Remember that it was 2 and then we took 1 from it. So here it remains what? 1, and it's still 1 here. So we can't subtract the 4 from the 1. You need to take 1 from the immediate number. So here remains 3. Okay, and then when you bring the 1 here, it will be 11. Okay, now when you have 11, now that we can subtract what? The 4 from 11. And when you subtract the 4 from 11, I think it's 7. Okay, so here is 7. Because the point must always be in line, the point must be here. Then here remains 3. Then you subtract the 7 from the 3. It can be possible. You need to take 1 from the immediate or the nearest number here. So when you take 1 here, here remains 1. Okay, here remains 1, and then here becomes what? 13. Let me write it for. That is why you have to leave one line so that your writing will be very obvious. Now here is 13. Now 13 minus 7, I think is 6. Okay, so 13 minus 7 will be 6. Then here will be 6. Okay, now remember here is 1 because it was 2, then we took 1 from. So here is 1. Then when you subtract 1, it will be 0. Now any number, remember we said that any number that begin with 0 is the same as that number. So the final answer is 6.748. Okay, that is 6.748. Good. First, you balance the decimal numbers. Second, you indicate the position or the place value indicates at the top. And then thirdly, you arrange them, but you make sure it's a point in the best answer. Then you start performing addition or subtraction or any other operation sign. That is the only addition and subtraction that you can use this method. Okay, so you do that. Now let's try this work. Take your sheet of paper and then you work it on it and then you tell me the answer. This part is very crucial because you need to join the class so that you can enjoy the free working or the practical aspect of the lesson. Okay, so if you do not join the class and you just listen to the video or you watch the video, you will not get the solution for this part. Okay, so let's solve this one now. Good. Now here is our second procedure that we can use to add or subtract what? Decimal fractions. This procedure is what? Changing both decimal fraction to like fraction. And as our first submission, I said, like fractions, they are the fractions with the same denominators. So this method works only when you are adding or subtracting decimal fraction, which means that you can use this method to do the multiplication and then division of decimal fraction. They also have their own, but only addition and subtraction that we can use this method. Good. Firstly, you balance both decimal numbers as usual, the one that we use to balance. You count the number of decimal numbers, you make sure that they are all the same, they're all having the same number of decimal numbers. Secondly, you change the decimal fractions to common fraction. Okay, you change the decimal fraction to common fraction. The common fraction means, or to fraction, fraction is a part of a whole. So changing decimal fraction is a number with a point. So you change to common fraction or you change to a fraction this time, which means you are going to change to the state of being numerator and at the same time denominator. So that is the fraction for you. Fraction, it has numerator and denominator, but decimal fraction, we don't have numerator and denominator in decimal fraction. So you change from a number with a point to a number which has numerator and decimal or denominator. Okay, so that will be out of the decimal fraction content. Then finally, the denominators will be the same. Then you add or subtract the numerators over one of the denominators. So this method, after changing the decimal fractions into a common fraction, into live fractions, okay? When you change them into live fraction, you see that live fraction, they will all have the same denominators. Then you choose one of the denominators, but the numerators will be different. Then you perform the action only in the in the numerators. If it is addition, you add only the numerators over one of the denominator which are the same. Or if it is subtraction, you subtract only the the numerators all over one of the denominators which are the same. Okay, and we choose denominator and back, then you only add the numerators. Then if the denominators are the same, you choose one of them. So if it is subtraction that you are dealing with, then you subtract only the numerators. Sorry, then we take one of the denominators because they are all the same. So you take only one. Good. Now let's see example under this method here. A, we have 2.5 plus 0.52. So per this we have to solve and then you write your solution here. Good. And that will be our solution here. So the first one is 2.5 plus 0.52. So you first check and then you balance them. Okay, so let's check the decimal numbers here. We have only one decimal numbers, we have only two decimal numbers here, so you are going to balance them. Okay, so let's balance them. Our next step here will be 2.50 because you always add 0 to the one having less decimal numbers so that it will be equal to the other ones. Okay, plus 0.52. Good. Now they are having the same decimal numbers here. Now you have two decimal numbers, another two decimal numbers here. They are two. When you okanya mienu na waha and mienu na waha, that is having the same decimal numbers. Mean can say having equal decimal numbers. The same means the number are the same. Okanya unya two waha, unya two waha. So we are going to change them into fractions. Okay. So when you have the 2.50, it has two decimal numbers, and because when you indicate the position here, here is tens and here is 100. Okay, the decimal numbers here is tens and here is 100. Then because the last digit of the first decimal numbers here is under the hundreds, which means the entire number here is going to be divided by 100. So here will be 2 points. Let me write it well. Okay. So the entire number here is going to be divided by 100, which means that it will remove the point from the numbers. Or you can also decide that how many steps do you think you need to remove this point to outside here. You need only two steps. The two steps attract only two zeros. Or the last digit of this number here is what? It's under the 100, which means that the entire number here is going to be divided by 100. So it will be 250 all over 100 here. Okay. Plus, so here too, the last digit of decimal number is under 100. So the entire number here is going to be what? Over 100. So it should be 0.52. Remember 0.52 is the same as 52. Okay. All over 100. Now because they all have the same denominators, you are going to choose one here. So you choose one of the denominators, which is 100 here. And the sign here means addition. So you are going to add the numerators, which means we have the 250 plus 0.52. Okay. Because fraction, any point, anything any point in everywhere, they are divided by the point, you know, and then I the two zeros, you know, and 100 in our one. So let's add this one. When you have your 250, do that one and tell me the answer. 250 plus 52.
The time is 2:15 a.m.
So our answer here is 302 all over 100. Okay. The 250 plus, then you can work it somewhere. Okay. You work it somewhere, and therefore once you have this one, you have to leave your answer in decimal form. So leaving your answer in decimal form, when you have the 302 over 100, then you're going to leave our answer here in decimal form. Because we have only two zeros, or because it's divided by two zeros here, or 100, which means that we start our movement from the back, we make only two movements. So 1 and then 2. Each movement will cancel 1 0. This one will cancel the 1 0. So the point will be here. Okay. So final answer here will be 3.02. Okay. So this is, so 302 over 100, the decimal fraction here, 3.02. Remember, I said question then a decimal fraction. So when you finish, you leave your answer in decimal fraction. So let's see the next one here. The next one, we have 0.245 plus 0.7. Okay, so before you can solve this one, as usual, you need to balance. You balance the decimal numbers here, which means that here our new decimal numbers, you'll be adding the two zeros to the one having less decimal number. So here will be 0.245 plus 0.700. Okay, now we have three decimal numbers here. Now we have three decimal numbers. Always we are the one having less decimal numbers. You add the number of zero that it will make it balance to the first or the second one. Okay. Now we are going to change this one into fractions. So changing this one into fractions, because you have to indicate the decimal numbers. Okay, the position of this one here. Now here is tens, 100, and here is 1,000. Okay, because remember the decimal numbers, the place value, they get start from the tens. Okay, starting from the left side of the decimal numbers. So here too we have the tens, 100, and then 1,000. Okay, because the last digit of the decimal numbers is under the 1,000, so the entire number here is going to be divided by 1,000. Okay, so now we have the 0, 2, 4, 5, 0,245 over 1,000. Okay, over 1,000. Now plus 0,700 over 1,000, because fraction they are pointing in into yeah, you point in every more they are divided by 1,000. Before you move the point from this number, you need three steps, 1, 2, 3, before the point will be out from this number. That is why we have divided by 30. Now because we have the same denominators here, you write, you choose one of the denominators. Okay, then the action there is what? Addition. So which means that we are going to add the numerators. Okay, now we have 0,245 plus 0,700. Okay, remember I said any number be begin with a 0 be is the same as that number. Okay, so now you add these things, you work it somewhere. 245 plus 700. Okay, or any number that begin with 0 is the same as that number. Okay, then you add, you get 945, or you can either start with a 0,945 over the 1,000. Okay. Now we must change the fraction. So this is a fraction. It has numerator and the denominator. So you must change the fraction into the what? Into the decimal fraction. But you have to put a point because decimal fraction is a number with a point. So once we have the 30 here, which means that we are going to make 3 movements starting from the back. So 1, 2, and 3. Okay. So each movement will cancel 1 0. Each step will cancel 1 0, and that is all. So now we have the 0 point where the movement or the last movement, and that is where the point will be located. So now once you have this one, the point will be here. Okay, so the answer is 0.945. Okay, good. 0.945. Let's do the C. The C, we have 0.7 minus 0.5252. Now you balance the decimal numbers. Here it has only one decimal number. Here too it has two decimal numbers. So which means that when you balance our new decimal fraction, here will be 0.7070 minus 0.52. Now they have the same decimal numbers. Here is 2 and here is 2. We are finished balancing there. So you are going to change this one. This method here, you change to what? Fractions. And when you change to fraction, they will be like fraction, which means that they will be having the same denominator here. So now when you change this one, because before you want to change, you have to indicate the position of the numbers, which will help you to identify that this last digit of the decimal numbers here is under the tens or under the hundred. So here will be tens and here will be hundred. Okay, the decimal numbers always start from the left side with the tens. We don't have ones in the decimal numbers. So here is also tens and here will be what? 100. So since the last digit of decimal numbers here is under the 100, the entire number here is going to be over the what? 100. So you get 0.70 over 100 because the last digit here is under the 100 minus 0.52 over the 100. Now they are like fraction because they have the same denominators, 100, 100. Then because they have the same denominators, you choose one of the denominator here. We have 100 here. And then you perform the actions at the top here. 0.70, which is the same as 70, you can write the 70 minus 52, or you can either write 0.70 minus 0.52. Okay, good. When you're done, then you subtract. You work it somewhere. You write 70 in a vertical order, and then you solve. Okay, you can write 70 here. Show workings minus 52 here can be possible. So here will be 10. Here remains 6. Okay, so here is 8. When you subtract the 5 from the 6, it will be 1. So now here will be 18 or 0.18 over 100. Okay, our answer must also be in decimal fraction and not in fraction. Okay, though the fraction is 18 over 100, but you must also write your answer in decimal fraction. Because we have two zeros starting from the back, we are changing the fraction into the what? Into the decimal fraction. The point will be here, so our one here will be 0 point. Each point will cancel 1 0 right there. Here will cancel this 0. Okay, so the point will be 0.18. Okay, that's 0.18. Then the last one here, we have 24.2 minus 22.5257. Okay, 257. Good. Now you balance, you make sure that you balance the decimal numbers here. Here it has only 1, here it has 3. So which means that you'll be adding the 2 zeros to the next or the first decimal numbers here. So here will be 24.200 minus 22.257. Now you could see clearly that they all have the same decimal numbers, 3 here and 3 here. Under this method, you change them into fractions. So before you change them into fraction, you indicate the position of what? Of the decimal numbers here. Here is tens, hundred, and thousand. Okay. Here is tens, hundred, and thousand. Here, the whole number is only ones, tens. Okay. Only whole numbers start with the ones, starting from the right side of the whole number before you come to the 10. So here will be ones, that is 0. Okay, but we are interested about only the decimal numbers. Decimal numbers don't have ones, so they start their own from the tens.
The time is 2:30 a.m.
Starting from the tens, from the left side of the decimal number. So since the last digit here is under the thousand, the entire number here is going to be divided by 1000. Good. So we have, let me write this one here, 24 or 2420 over 1000. Good. Two 257 over 1000. Okay, now let me use this one, also this space. Now let me bring my here over 1000 over 1000, but the sign here is the minus sign. Okay, that is the minus sign. Now because they have the same denominator, you are going to choose one because now they are like fraction now. fraction. Hwee no one for point and ma fraction name. Okay, because fraction any point you. It has only numerator and the denominator. So since they are like fraction is that they have the same denominators. Okay, 24,200 over 1,000, 22,257 over what? 1,000. So because they have the same, then you underline, then you write 1,000 here. Because they have the same denominator, you choose one. Then you perform the action, which is 2, 4, 0, 0 minus 2, 2, 2, 5, 7. Then you calculate, you find the difference. Okay, no what here frame, you show workings. Okay, it means that 24,200 minus 22,257. Okay, then when you subtract, you get 1,943. Now we have 1,943 over 1,000. Okay, now when you have this one, you must change to decimal fraction because because our answer or the question was in the decimal fraction. So when you solve, your final answer must be in decimal fraction, not in fraction. We just say it's a fraction. So you have to change to decimal fraction. And decimal fraction, they are the numbers with a point. Here there's no point, so you have to insert your point. Because we have 3 zeros, or because it's over 1,000, then you make 3 movements starting from the back. 1, 2, 3. Okay, each step will cancel 1 0, each step will cancel 1 0, and each step here will cancel 1 0. Now where the step end, where you can locate your point. So now we have 1.943. okay, good. Let me do the point where. So that is the second of our fourth answer, 1.943. Good. Remember, you balance the decimal numbers as usual, and then if you are using this method, then you change to fractions. Depends on the number of the last digits of the decimal numbers. So you first indicate the position of the decimal numbers, which will enable you to identify whether the last digit is under the tens or 100 or 1,000. Then you divide it by that. After then, since there will be a like fraction, so since they will be having the same denominator, then you choose one of the denominators and then you perform the actions only in the numerators. You add or you subtract only the numerators at the expense of of the one of the denominator, because their denominators are the same. You choose one. When you finish, make sure that you turn your answer back to to the decimal numbers. Thank you. Now try this one, and this one will be our last try and work here. So let's try this one and work this one out. And then when you finish, you tell me your answer. Start now. Thank you. We shall meet again. Goodbye.